Well, hello. I am once again May Leitz. You'll remember me from some of the internet's greatest atrocities, or perhaps I have been made fun of significantly. And if not, maybe I should. I need to be knocked down a peg. My ego's getting too big. Hi, and welcome back to Nick's Fears. Again, I am May Leitz, so it's good to meet you or see you again. I'm talking today about the film Pearl, directed by Ty West and written by Mia Goth, who we love. So last year, the movie X came out, and a lot of people really hyped it up, specifically because of Mia Goth and Ty West's kind of union on the project and approach to what they were trying to do. And genuinely, the movie shocked audiences everywhere, and audiences everywhere generally loved it. I remember horror audiences really being all about it. I want to say that I was about almost there. I was somewhat on board with the movie, but I wasn't quite as in love with it, I guess, as everybody else, maybe, because the antagonists didn't quite interest me as much as I wanted them to, if that makes sense. So, completely blind, without any prior knowledge at all, I went to see Pearl, which is directed by Ty West and written by Mia Goth and Ty West, and it is a prequel to X about the antagonist from X, talking about her life and sort of what she wanted and all of that. And let me tell you what, I thought that it was a much better film. Loved the shit out of Pearl. X, I was almost there for it. It's probably a lot better now that I've seen this, to be honest with you. But this one, fucking fantastic. Really thought every single aspect of this was just phenomenal. So Pearl follows Pearl, a woman with her husband off at war, sort of taken care of on a farm. I would call it enslaved more than anything by her family, by her parents. Her mother is very dictatorial and has a German accent. Her father is unable to speak or really take care of himself, so they have to take care of him 24/7. Pearl has two things going on. Number one is she deeply feels that she deserves to be famous, and if she is not famous soon, then she's going to take it out on everyone around her, which is very relatable, to tell you the truth. I too am near the edge. The other thing is that she's kind of a murderer. She has no problem killing animals, and she often fantasizes about killing human beings, and specifically her parents. So the movie is great because it's constantly walking this line where Pearl is this complicated character caught right dead ass in the middle of wanting to be loved and also about to snap. And she also deeply misses her husband, but also resents him for going off to a war that he didn't choose to go off to. So she avoids it for a little while, but does eventually sleep with someone. And that goes not great for anyone. More primarily, there is a moment, I want to say about 20 minutes into the movie, where I knew that I was going to love the movie, when Pearl was walking home from the city and she stopped off at a scarecrow that she found, pulled the scarecrow down, stole its hat, and then fucked it. That was pretty amazing. I really enjoyed it. There's this overwhelming element of sexual repression, which was basically the big thing in X. X was about the sexual repression of prior generations is often held over the head of younger generations that are actually doing it. Young people are actually out here living their lives and trying to bloom and trying to make art and blossom and be who they are and be free-spirited. And the older generation is constantly trying to police that because they themselves were unable to achieve those dreams in their life. So Pearl is more or less following the pattern of that repression, or how that repression gets built. Where does it come from? How does it manifest in somebody, even a prior generation? My husband's off at war, and I've got a year of sexual repression. I'm not allowed to do anything whatsoever that's remotely attractive or outgoing, and this slowly turns me into the person that I hate, being my mother, the person who's very dictatorial dictatorial, very like staunch and violent, and understands that life is not about dreaming about things. It's about making the most of the bullshit you were handed already. That is something is truly definitional to, I believe, the prior generation. Like if we're talking about the prior generation, at some point they realized that a lot of their dreams weren't going to come true, and that war and disaster more or less going to be their entire existence. So we might as well go ahead and embrace that. Let's just make the most of what we have and protect our family, which is a very good instinct. I mean, when you're in a survival state for a really long time, you do kind of fall into this desire to protect more than anything else, more than to go out, more than to dream, more than to strive or try. You just don't want the people in your life to like die. But this can manifest so badly when life is not necessarily about laying down and waiting to die and protecting everything around you. It's about blossoming and growing, trying things, knowing that nobody gets out alive. Both of those things, like narrative going on inside of Pearl, and they're at conflict. And this conflict is basically what leads to the outburst of violence. More than anything, Pearl just wants to be loved. And that's a relatable mood. I think everybody feels that way. Wanting to be loved and wanting to be fulfilling and entertaining and creative and people to admire you. These are natural, desirable traits. Everybody kind of wants some level of that. But the whole, actually, what I want to do is slink into silence and never be seen again is usually a response to the desire to survive, the desire to maintain what little you have and not try to get anything new. So this is like I think something that defined our previous generation. I always felt this way about, my family more or less, or at least family that I had known. There's a car outside that's very loud. But why exactly do they seem to want to keep you in the house, keep you from doing anything, keep you from being yourself or feeling yourself or becoming something that's even greater than they were? After we all experienced like COVID and shit like that, we know that everybody is kind of on this equal level of humanity, and everyone is susceptible to the same dangers and all these things. People have people in their lives that they deeply want to protect and love, but also there's this urge inside of us to reach outside of that and push into something new and find ourselves. There's like a Kurt Vonnegut bit in many of his pieces of literature that talks about how the best thing to end your story on is they just become themselves. Like at the end of the day, they stop fighting with their upbringing and fighting with their situation, and they just become themselves. This is the desire for anyone, right? Is to just feel like they've become themselves, they feel strong being themselves, and they're allowed to expand and be loved for being themselves. And the inability to do that mostly comes from this protective urge to stamp out anything that looks like a fire. And sometimes good things look like fires, and sometimes fires inside people look like fires. And so the worst thing about the movie is just how nobody seems to notice that Pearl is filled with music and love and lust for life. Everybody more or less wants to tell her to stop, or they only want to use that as some sort of manipulative angle to like have sex with her or take shit from her. So she's constantly being distracted with like, basic human life stuff. Like everyone's distracting her with this like sort of menial stuff, so she's not able to really blossom. But even still, she takes her personality and injects it into her day-to-day work, performing her own musicals for her farm animals. Like that's adorable to me. So I don't know. It's funny because at the end of the day, she ends up becoming the antagonist of X, and that's like kind of sad. You don't want to see her become that. But at the same time, like there's such a love inside her that's clearly painted by like Mia Goth and Ty West. There are two specific moments. There's a monologue at the end of the movie where Pearl just sits and explains in detail why she feels the way she feels and how she feels. Truly one of the most beautiful moments in a horror movie I have ever seen. I understand. As fucked up as it is, I understand. Like, she's talking about how she feels like she deeply has something wrong with her because she always responds with malicious anger and violence whenever confronted with anything like disappointing, how she's scared of her own urges and these things, things that you would never hear come out of the mouth of a horror antagonist. There's this like level of nuance and understanding to the character that it just wowed me. I genuinely genuinely thought it was fantastic. I almost want to call it destructive in its approach to understanding the horror antagonist ethos. It's like trying to make you empathize with them, but also trying to make you understand how they do the natural human thing that sucks. How can somebody with so much lust for life become like a staunch conservative in their later life? Well, it's because of shit like this. So like the exploitation of women sometimes ends up going detrimentally wrong for women because they enforce it in themselves. There's like an extensive dialogue about internalized misogyny in the film as well. But the other moment that truly wowed me was there's the last shot of the movie is Pearl staring at her husband and faking a smile. And the entire movie it has this thing going on about performative happiness versus like true honest happiness, and how true honest happiness is often something that is experienced entirely alone, because a woman's role is to make sure that, you know, she never does anything out of line, and, you know, everybody likes her and thinks that she's great and pretty and beautiful and has a future and all this shit. So because she has to intricately manage herself away from her truth, she ends up performing an awful lot. That performance starts to erode her psyche, because that has a tendency to be the thing. Like, being dishonest even to yourself is difficult for your like mind to handle. And so over the course of time, she just starts to kind of erode away the ability to perform. And whenever she breaks the performance, she does so angrily and violently. Maintaining the performance is something that's deeply painful for her. And so in the last shot of the movie, we see her staring at her husband, trying, asking for approval, asking to be forgiven for all of the murders and all of the bullshit, and just to pretend that everything's fine, and to salvage her life, and to, you know, staunchly protect the things she's not ready to lose, and all of these things. And she smiles and just cries in a close-up. For the entirety of the credits, she's just shaking and crying and smiling as if nothing is wrong. The most heartbreaking image in any movie I saw this whole year. I don't know exactly what constitutes a 2021 movie and a 2022 movie anymore, because like so many movies are coming out that were made a long time ago, or vice versa. I think this is probably my favorite movie of the year. I would say Crimes of the Future is also up there, but I think that came out technically last year, so we're gonna go with Pearl. Like, Ty West, I've always known Ty West was a fantastic director. House of the Devil is a fantastic movie. The Innkeepers is visually interesting, and I think the character work is really good. He always has a tendency to work with these women that really bring a ton to their role, and they usually have a strong sense of speaking about the feminine experience, and I love that about him. Like, that is his like bold-faced specific choice. I love that he's the documentary guy in You're Next, and then he gets shot in the face with an arrow. I think that's fantastic. No, Ty West is a fantastic director. I think that we probably need to get ready for Ty West to be more of a household name in horror, because I think that that's the direction things are heading with X and with this. He's always been a naturally really fantastic filmmaker, but nowadays it seems like he's got the talent and the financial support to really do the stuff that he really wants to be doing, and platforming the ideas that he really wants to platform, and making the movies that he really deeply desires. A beautiful thing, and I'm so here for it. So more than anything, I love the fact that Ty West is now like moving up in the world. I can't wait for them to grab him and force him to do a fucking Marvel Netflix series. That's going to be goddamn great. Really stoked for his future. I never feel like I say that about filmmakers. Ty West fucking 10 years ago was great as well. We all really liked his stuff back then, and we were all like, one day he's gonna... And so now this is kind of like the payoff for 10 years ago when we were like, he's gonna make that movie one day. And that movie, in my opinion, is Pearl. Like, Pearl is the movie that we were all waiting for him to make. And now that he's made it, he's gonna do stuff that we can't even imagine. I think the same is true of Mia Goth. Like, Mia Goth has been a fantastic talent in many films for a really long time. Her writing and her performance on this is completely next level. It is far beyond anything I've ever seen her do. I can't commend it enough. I really, really loved it. And so, as a tragic story about like letting the past control your future, I think it's really good, specifically because we're all really worried about this right now. Like, everybody is worried about becoming their parents, and this movie is very literally about becoming your parents and then how you're inevitably going to do that to other children and how these problems perpetuate themselves throughout the generations. I love that we're at a point where people are actually having a conversation about actually stopping this shit now. That's pretty cool. Maybe we could stop doing this to people. So thank you for watching. I've been May Leitz, and the YouTube channel is Nick Spheres. It's good to see you. Good to see you again. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, patreon.com/Nick Spheres. If you like what I do, consider subscribing and giving me a like. And also, if you don't know about it, you should pick up my book. It's called Fluids. It's got a bird who's dead on it. I never talk about what this book is about. So in like elevator pitch brief synopsis, it's about two women that meet online, and then when they actually like get together IRL, it turns out they were not only wrong for each other, but violently so. So the book is very violent and very horrible, but it also like touches on a lot of experiences that I've personally had with dating and a lot of experiences I've had with queerness as well as gender and sexuality. So there's a lot going on in it, I'd like to think. I am sorry that the last couple videos have not been 2 hours long. I have been taking a teensy little break from Not Safe for Life content because I made 2 in a row, and I was like, that's enough for my brain. And I'm also reading and doing a lot of research for the next Not Safe for Life iceberg because I was like, I want to make very compelling arguments that change the way that we talk about this shit on the internet, because that's kind of always my angle. I always want to add some level of nuance to the internet because the internet is known for being unnuanced. Thank you all for being patient with me and checking out my shit. I will see y'all very soon with new content, and it will kill you. I'll see you soon. Goodbye. I love you. Even if I'm miles away, I still see you.